Distance psychological guidance services. In the information age we live in, information technologies contribute to distance education activities. The COVID-19 epidemic has also increased the orientation towards educational technologies. Today, an important part of the educational needs of the student is tried to be met through distance education. Distance education and distance psychological guidance services are the whole of the practices that are structured on environments where the teacher and the students are independent of each other in terms of time, space, and supported by technological tools. In this system, where the teacher and the students are in separate environments, advanced educational technologies are used. The first efforts to provide distance educational guidance assistance to clients or students started with the provision of psychological counseling by telephone in crisis situations. In the following years, computer-assisted psychological counseling applications were used with the developments in computer technologies. With the internet is becoming a common interpersonal communication tool in recent years, a new internet-based psychological counseling practice called e-therapy or online counseling has emerged in the literature. Psychological counseling is essentially a profession based on mutual communication. For this reason, it has become very difficult to try to carry out psychological counseling and guidance activities through distance education during the pandemic process. Distance psychological counseling is applied alone or in combination with classical treatment approaches in the treatment of many psychiatric diseases. I mean, depression and anxiety disorders. In addition, internet and computer technologies are used in marriage and family counseling, vocational counseling, and group counseling. Studies show that online counseling gives positive results in the development of the client. It has been seen that online counseling can be carried out for individuals and groups through different technologies and facilitates access to the disadvantaged groups in terms of space, time, cost, and transportation. In another study, it was found that high school and university students viewed the traditional face-to-face approach more positively than receiving psychological counseling over the internet. The transition to distance practices in education made it necessary for students and their families to adapt to an unfamiliar process. Since PCR services couldn't progress independently of this process, intervention and preventive services were especially needed in this period. Psychological counseling and guidance services are also a part of distance education. In order to reach more students, a special digital platform should be established that can make individual and collective meetings and share content. Students who have a permitted illness or who are educated at home or who are educated in the hospitals need psychosocial support. It is necessary to involve them in the activities and to conduct individual consultations. More support can be provided to them through distance education. In the distance psychological and guidance services, which guidance fields should be given the most important varies according to the features of the client, type of the school, and level of the students, and etc. Lessons conducted with distance education can be conducted synchronously, simultaneously, or asynchronously. In the virtual classroom environment, students and instructors can communicate with each other live in the course, which is carried out in the synchronous form. In this method, students can simultaneously ask questions, convey their requests about incomprehensible issues, and have the opportunity to discuss with each other. In the asynchronous course, the student can access the courses over the internet whenever and wherever they want, and they can follow the course with the help of the materials such as videos or audio recordings previously uploaded to the system. In this method, students are not be able to immediately communicate with the instructor and questions about the subjects that are not understood. In the distance education process, guidance and psychological counseling plans should be transformed. Changes in the needs of the teachers, parents, and students should be taken into account in this process. Especially in the extraordinary situation, such as epidemics, the need for psychological counseling and guidance services increases more. For this reason, it is necessary to diversify the channels through which people and students needing support can reach that easily. For which psychological problems the distance guidance services are suitable? Anxiety disorders, sleeping disorders, family relations, depression, post-traumatic disorders, eating disorders, social phobia, coping with the grief, burnout syndrome, phobias, career syndrome, or psychological dimension of medical diseases, education consultancy, or vocational guidance, and etc. In distance psychological support and guidance services, students' self-discipline skills should be emphasized first. As long as the student can manage himself or herself, he or she is successful in other areas as well. In order to increase productive learning, each student should be aware of his or her own learning style, know the right study method and test-solving techniques, and be trained in subjects such as time management. Individual differences such as time flexibility, application, content diversity, service delivery accessibility, target expectations, they are all should be taken into account in the provision of distance guidance services. It can be said that guidance and psychological guidance services are sensitive to individual differences in the context of time flexibility. In addition, it can be said that personal development courses for educational, personal, social, career development areas with different contents, peer guidance, online face-to-face psychological counseling, book applications, written bulletins, and brochure applications are suitable for individual differences in terms of the variety of the services. As distance guidance services, seminars or classroom guidance studies for students and parent seminars can continue to be held through online systems. If we list the works that can be done for students are various documents, videos and images that can be shared for students on various topics related to the guidance in class groups. Guidance content on various topics can be shared on school websites for students. On the guidance pages of the school website, the brief information on topics such as job introduction, study strategies, exam anxiety can be included. Internet-based activities and events can be organized for them to share their feelings and thoughts. environments should be created where they can socialize in a healthy way. Individual interviews should be conducted with the students who are negatively affected by the process with the help of online teleconference or something like these tools and etc. Distance guidance studies can be increased, especially in personal and social areas. The parents' situations are also important in the distance learning education. If we list the activities that can be done for the parents, can be various documents, videos and images can be shared with the parents on various topics related to the guidance and psychological support in class groups. Awareness of the psychosocial support process should come at the beginning of the studies for teachers. In particular, it has been observed that the work of the psychological counselors on resilience has been fruitful. In addition, meetings and surveys can be carried out more quickly. Unfortunately, there are also students whose educational needs cannot be met because it is not possible to provide educational technology and internet that all students need. Therefore, this causes inequality among students. This inequality can also be felt among disadvantaged families and students. Until now, we have talked about the advantages of the distance psychological support and guidance services. But unfortunately, there are also some disadvantages of the distance psychological support and guidance services. Let's give some examples. Not being able to intervene in a crisis immediately is one of the most important disadvantages. It may create limitation in diagnosis. The specialist may have problems in identifying the topics beyond his or her expertise and understanding the clients. Or it cannot be said that it is very sufficient for those who have psychiatric disorders, students with severe depression, and those who think of harming themselves or someone else. And what else? Technological barriers can cause also problems. Internet disconnection or poor connection or device-related problems and etc. These barriers can also cause problems. Difficulties in focusing on students' verbal and non-verbal expressions can create an important barrier area. What else? The difficulty of establishing a relationship of trust in guidance distance services can also be considered as an important obstacle. Problems such as someone entering the room or the occurrence of an important situation related to the home brought about by consulting them from home or may interrupt the process. In cases where the interaction between the counselor and the student is preferred in the form of correspondence, the slow pace of the session may be another problem. And finally, the need for educational measures of trust in the confidentiality of counseling sessions may arise. Now let's go on. But COVID-19 has positive effects on the education system. Let's check them. The COVID-19 has also had positive effects on the distance education and distance psychological support and guidance process. First, by taking responsibility for their own learning, student becomes independent in learning and has a more investigative spirit. The student discovers how they learn best. And another thing is one of the best advantage of the psychological counseling in the distance education is that it increases the accessibility of mental health services for the psychological problems that individuals have experienced during this period. They can get psychological counseling service from a specialist anywhere in the world of their own choice, from wherever they want, without leaving their homes, wherever they want, and whenever they want. Going to a psychological counselor is one of the types of services that requires time. Therefore, obligation may arise, such as individuals taking leave from their jobs and not coinciding with their children's school leaving time. People who don't want to experience such obligations can receive online psychological counseling assistance at home whenever they want. Besides, going to a psychological counselor is one of the types of services that requires time. Therefore, obligations may arise, such as taking permissions from their jobs and not coinciding with their children's school leaving time. People who don't want to experience such obligations can receive online psychological counseling assistance at home whenever they want. It is effective and efficient in providing the psychological support that individuals need in situations that make it difficult to leave the house, such as an epidemic. Another thing is students and parents don't need to stay across the computer directly to the computer screen directly to receive psychological counseling assistance. They can get psychological help by connecting to the specialist they choose from their smartphones or tablets, tablet computers at any time and place. In the distance guidance services, students can only get the support they need and leave the system without experiencing social anxiety or being affected by an epidemic. Finally, for students who experience social anxiety or who are shy in the traditional face-to-face counseling, or for clients who don't want to share their problems with someone that they are physically close to you, the distance counseling process can be an important start for people to get help.